In a world where appearances dictate power, a veil hides more than just a face. It tests whether love can see beyond the surface. Marcus Harrington stood at the window of his penthouse office, gazing at the sprawling city below that contained several of his family's properties. At 38, he had everything money could buy: tailored suits, luxury cars, vacation homes on 3 continents, but nothing that truly mattered. Since his parents' passing last year, the Harrington empire had consumed his existence, leaving no room for meaningful connections. His assistant Diane knocked softly before entering. "Your Aunt Vivian is here to see you, Mr. Harrington," she announced professionally. Marcus nodded, straightening his tie as his father's sister walked in, elegant as always in her designer outfit. "Marcus, darling," Vivian embraced him warmly. "You look absolutely dreadful. When was the last time you had a proper meal or a full night's sleep?" Marcus managed a tired smile. "I'm fine, Aunt Viv. Just busy ensuring the family legacy continues to thrive." He gestured toward the leather chairs by his desk. "What brings you here today? I thought you were still in Europe." Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Vivian settled into a chair, her expression growing serious. "I've been concerned about you, Marcus. Your father, my brother, wouldn't want you to sacrifice your happiness for the company, which is why I've come with a proposition." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A proposition?" "Yes. You remember my dear friend Eleanor Jenkins? Her family has a successful tech company in Atlanta. We've discussed the possibility of uniting our families through marriage." Marcus stared in disbelief. "An arranged marriage?" "Aunt Viv, this isn't the 1800s. I don't need you matchmaking for me." "Hear me out," Vivian insisted. "Eleanor's niece, Zara, is brilliant. Stanford MBA, runs their international division. The Jenkins family is one of the few black-owned conglomerates that could complement our holdings. This wouldn't just be a marriage, it would be a powerful alliance." Marcus shook his head firmly. "I don't care about her credentials or family connections. I'm not marrying someone I've never met." "You'll meet her at the charity gala next week," Vivian countered smoothly. "And I'm not asking you to marry her immediately, just consider it, get to know her." "And what does this Zara think about being auctioned off like a merger acquisition?" Vivian's eyes flashed. "Don't be crude, Marcus. She's as practical as you are. She understands the benefits of such an arrangement." The ballroom of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel sparkled with chandeliers and the jewelry of Manhattan's elite. Marcus arrived fashionably late, scanning the crowd for his aunt. When he spotted Vivian waving to him from across the room, he sighed deeply and made his way over. "There you are," Vivian said, relief evident in her voice. "I was beginning to think you'd stood us up." "I considered it," Marcus admitted. "Where is this business arrangement you want me to marry?" Vivian frowned at his choice of words. "Zara was called away for an urgent phone call. Something about their Tokyo office. She'll join us shortly." She lowered her voice. "There's something I should mention. Zara was in an accident several years ago. She's quite sensitive about her appearance and wears a partial face veil for public events." Marcus felt a mixture of surprise and discomfort. "A veil? Is that why you're so eager to set this up? You think I wouldn't be interested if I saw her first?" "Don't be ridiculous," Vivian snapped. "I'm telling you because I don't want you to react inappropriately when you meet her. She's an extraordinary woman, Marcus. Don't let your superficial judgments cloud your vision." Before Marcus could respond, he noticed a woman approaching them. She wore an elegant black gown with a sheer veil covering the right side of her face. Even with half her features obscured, there was something commanding about her presence. "Ms. Jenkins, thank you for joining us," Vivian said warmly. "This is my nephew, Marcus Harrington." Zara extended her hand. "Mr. Harrington, your aunt has told me much about you." "All good things, I hope," Marcus replied automatically, taking her hand. Despite his reservations about the arrangement, he couldn't deny that her voice was captivating, rich, and confident. That remains to be seen, Zara answered with a hint of amusement. Shall we find somewhere quieter to talk? These events are hardly conducive to meaningful conversation. They found a relatively quiet corner by the terrace doors. Marcus studied Zara as discreetly as possible. The visible side of her face revealed smooth brown skin, a striking cheekbone, and an expressive eye that held both intelligence and wariness. "I'll be direct, Mr. Harrington," Zara began. "I understand your aunt and my aunt have been plotting this potential merger of our families." Marcus appreciated her candor. "And how do you feel about being part of their corporate expansion strategy?" Zara laughed, a genuine sound that surprisingly put Marcus at ease. "Is that what you think this is? I assure you, I have no interest in being anyone's acquisition." "Then why agree to meet me?" "Curiosity, perhaps, or maybe I wanted to see the man who thinks he's too good to consider an arranged marriage to a woman with a facial disfigurement." Marcus flinched at her bluntness. "I never said—" "You didn't have to. Your reluctance was evident to my aunt, who told my aunt, who informed me in great detail." Zara's visible eye held his gaze steadily. "Let me save us both some time. I'm not interested in a pity match or in someone who values appearance over substance." For the first time in months, Marcus felt genuinely intrigued by another person. "That's not fair. You've already judged me without knowing me." "Perhaps," Zara conceded. "Just as you've made assumptions about me." They fell into conversation that flowed surprisingly easily. They discussed business philosophies, travel experiences, and even argued good-naturedly about literature. Hours passed like minutes. "I should be going," Zara finally said, checking her watch. "Early flight tomorrow." "To Tokyo?" Marcus asked, remembering the earlier phone call. Zara nodded. "Our expansion there requires some personal attention." "May I call you when you return?" The question surprised Marcus as much as it seemed to surprise Zara. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "You may." Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Zara maintained regular communication despite the distance. What began as formal exchanges evolved into personal conversations about their hopes, fears, and experiences. Marcus found himself looking forward to their calls, even adjusting his schedule to accommodate the time difference. When Zara returned from Tokyo, they began meeting regularly. Quiet dinners, art exhibitions, even a spontaneous helicopter tour of the city. Always she wore her veil in public, but Marcus realized he hardly noticed it anymore. One evening, as they walked through Central Park after dinner, Marcus gathered his courage. "I've been thinking about what our aunts proposed." Zara tensed slightly. "What about it?" "It's ridiculous to marry someone for business advantages," Marcus said. "I agree completely," Zara replied, a note of disappointment barely detectable in her voice. "But marrying someone because you've fallen in love with their mind, their strength, their perspective on the world, that makes perfect sense to me." Zara stopped walking, turning to face him. "Marcus, I don't care about the veil, Zara. I don't care about what's underneath it. I care about you, the person I've come to know these past months." Zara was silent for a long moment. "You say that? Now, but you haven't seen—" "I don't need to see," Marcus insisted, "unless you want to show me." The morning of the wedding dawned with a crystalline clarity that seemed to Marcus both auspicious and nerve-wracking. As he stood before the antique mirror in his family estate's East Wing, adjusting his bow tie for what felt like the 100th time, he couldn't help but reflect on the unexpected journey that had brought him here. 3 months ago, the idea of an arranged marriage had seemed archaic and coldly transactional. Now, as he prepared to commit his life to Zara, he wondered how he could have ever been so resistant to even meeting her. The Harrington family chapel, nestled on the wooded edge of the estate, had been transformed into an intimate sanctuary of white roses and twinkling lights. The stained glass windows cast jewel-toned shadows across the aged wooden pews where approximately 60 guests, a small gathering by Harrington standards, waited in anticipation. Marcus had insisted on keeping the ceremony intimate, despite his aunt's protests about social obligations and business connections that simply must be included. For once in his life, Marcus had stood firm against the expectations of his position. This day wasn't about the Harrington Empire, it was about Zara and the remarkable connection they had built. Marcus fidgeted slightly at the altar, his best friend Richard standing steadfastly beside him. The small string quartet began the processional, and Marcus felt his heart accelerate. Across the chapel, the heavy oak doors opened to reveal Eleanor Jenkins, Zara's aunt, who proceeded down the aisle with dignified grace. Following her came Vivian, looking uncharacteristically emotional as she took her place in the front row, dabbing discreetly at her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief. Then the music shifted and everyone rose. Marcus held his breath as Zara appeared in the doorway, a vision in a cream-colored gown that seemed to capture and magnify the light streaming through the windows. The dress was modern yet timeless, architectural, in its precision, with clean lines that emphasized her graceful posture and confident bearing. As she had at every public appearance they'd shared, Zara wore a veil, though this one was more elaborate for the occasion. Intricately designed lace, cascaded from a diamond-studded hairpin, artfully covering the right side of her face while leaving the left exposed. Marcus could see her visible eye fixed on him, unwavering and luminous with emotion. Zara walked alone down the aisle, a choice that had raised eyebrows among traditionalists, but which Marcus profoundly respected. "I've made my own way in life," she had explained when they discussed the ceremony. "I want to make my own way to you as well." Now, watching her measured, purposeful steps toward him, Marcus felt a swell of pride and admiration. This woman, who had insisted on maintaining her independence and identity throughout their courtship, was choosing to join her life with his not out of necessity or convenience, but out of genuine desire. When she reached him, Zara extended her hand. Marcus took it, feeling the slight tremor in her fingers that belied her composed expression. "You look beautiful," he whispered, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Beauty, he had learned through knowing Zara, had very little to do with conventional aesthetics and everything to do with the authentic expression of one's essence. The ceremony proceeded with a meaningful simplicity. They had written their own vows, another break from Harrington tradition that had delighted Zara and horrified Marcus's more conservative relatives. Marcus spoke of finding unexpected connection in what he had initially viewed as an outdated arrangement. He promised to continue looking beneath surfaces, to value substance over appearance, to partner with Zara in creating a life of purpose rather than merely accumulating more wealth or status. When it was Zara's turn, her voice rang clear and confident through the chapel. "I came to our first meeting with protective barriers firmly in place," she acknowledged. "I had seen too often how women in positions like mine are valued more for how we look or what connections we bring than for who we truly are. The veil that has caused so much speculation was my shield, my test, my way of discovering if you could see beyond what is immediately visible to what matters most." She paused, her visible eye seeking his. "You passed that test not by pretending. The veil didn't exist, but by respecting it as part of my journey. You earned my trust not by demanding to see what was hidden, but by truly seeing what was already revealed." As the officiant guided them through their exchange of rings and final pronouncements, Marcus felt a profound sense of rightness settle over him. When they were at last pronounced husband and wife, he turned to face Zara fully, their hands intertwined. "May I?" he asked softly, his free hand hovering near her veil. Though they had discussed this moment ahead of time, he still held his breath, aware of the profound trust she was placing in him. Zara nodded almost imperceptibly, her visible eye reflecting a complex mixture of vulnerability, determination, and trust. The chapel fell completely silent. Even the rustle of programs and shifting of seats ceased, as everyone sensed the significance of the moment. With reverent care, Marcus gently lifted the veil, revealing Zara's face completely for the first time. His eyes widened in genuine surprise, and he heard several audible gasps from the guests. For a suspended moment, time seemed to stand still as understanding dawned. Before him stood a woman of striking, flawless beauty. Her face was perfectly symmetrical, with no sign of scarring or disfigurement whatsoever. Her rich brown skin glowed with health and vitality, catching the light from the stained glass windows in a way that seemed almost ethereal. Both eyes, now revealed, possessed the same intelligence and depth that had captivated him in their countless conversations, the same spark that had challenged and delighted him for months. The right side of her face, which had been consistently hidden, was as exquisitely formed as the left. "I don't understand," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible even in the hushed chapel. Confusion mingled with wonder in his expression, as he struggled to reconcile what he was seeing with what he had believed. Zara placed her hand gently over his, her touch grounding him as it had so many times during their courtship. "The veil was never about hiding a disfigurement," she explained, her voice steady though intimate. "It was my test, to find someone who would value me for my mind and heart, not my appearance. Too many men in my position only see a beautiful black woman as a trophy, a status symbol, an exotic acquisition. In boardrooms and ballrooms alike, I've been judged first for how I look rather than what I think or what I've accomplished. I needed to know you were different." A murmur rippled through the gathered guests, but Marcus barely registered it. His focus remained entirely on Zara, on processing what this revelation meant about their entire relationship. "You deceived me," Marcus said after a moment, but there was no accusation or anger in his voice, only a kind of awestruck wonder at her courage and foresight. "I revealed my true self to you from the beginning," Zara countered gently, her now fully visible gaze holding his steadily. "Every conversation we shared, every opinion I expressed, every value I upheld, that was the real me. The only deception was letting you believe the veil concealed something you might find displeasing. I had to know if you could see beyond appearances, both literal and figurative. I needed to be certain that you valued the woman I am, rather than the asset I might represent." Marcus considered this, understanding dawning in his eyes. Throughout their courtship, they had connected on so many levels, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. They had debated business ethics and shared childhood memories. They had planned philanthropic initiatives and argued about literature. Not once had he pressed her about the veil, not because he didn't notice it, but because he had come to see it as incidental to who she truly was. "When we first met," he said slowly, "I thought our aunts were trying to set me up with someone. They assumed I wouldn't choose on my own. I thought they were hiding something from me." A smile began to spread across his face as the irony struck him. "But they were giving me the opportunity to discover something far more valuable than I could have imagined." Zara's expression softened, relief and joy mingling in her features. "They knew what they were doing, I suspect. Eleanor has always understood that the path to my heart requires patience and perception. And from what you've told me about Vivian, she knows you well enough to recognize that you needed to be challenged to see beyond your initial assumptions." Marcus shook his head in amazement, taking in the full splendor of Zara's unveiled face while recognizing that her true beauty had been evident all along in her brilliance, her principles, her unwavering authenticity. "You are the most remarkable woman I've ever known," he said with profound sincerity. "And you," Zara replied, her voice rich with emotion, are the man I choose to build a life with, not because our aunts arranged it, not because it makes business sense, but because you learn to see me, the real me." She squeezed his hands gently. "That's worth more than all the Harrington Holdings and Jenkins Enterprises combined." Around them, the chapel remained hushed, witnesses to a moment of revelation that transcended the typical wedding ritual. Even those who had come expecting merely a strategic alliance between powerful families could sense that they were observing something far more profound, a genuine connection forged through honesty, respect, and the willingness to look beyond surfaces. As Marcus and Zara sealed their vows with a kiss, both recognized that their arranged introduction had led to something neither could have planned for. The business advantages that their aunts had initially emphasized seemed trivial compared to what they had found, a partnership based on genuine understanding and love that transcended physical appearances and social expectations. The recessional music swelled as they turned to face their guests, Zara's face now fully revealed, her smile radiant and unreserved. Marcus noticed the looks of surprise still evident on many faces, the whispered conversations already beginning as people processed what they had witnessed. None of it mattered. What mattered was the woman beside him, whose ingenious test had ensured that their marriage began with a foundation of authentic connection rather than superficial attraction. As they proceeded down the aisle together, Marcus leaned close to Zara's ear. "I'm glad I failed your aunt's original matchmaking attempt," he confessed quietly. "And even more glad that you gave me the chance to pass your test instead." Zara's laugh, uninhibited and genuine, rang through the chapel, a sound that Marcus now realized he'd first fallen in love with long before he ever saw her complete face. It was, he thought, the perfect beginning to their unconventional but deeply authentic union, a marriage that would be defined not by what others saw when they looked at the Harrington-Jenkins couple, but by what they had discovered by truly seeing each other. 1 year later, Marcus and Zara stood together at the announcement of their company's collaborative foundation. Not a merger, but a partnership dedicated to creating educational opportunities for underprivileged youth. Who would have thought, Marcus mused as they prepared to address the gathering, that our aunt's meddling would lead to this? Zara smiled, her face uncovered and confident. They saw the potential for a beneficial alliance. "We found something more valuable, a true partnership. I'm still not over the fact that you let me believe that I was hiding something," Zara finished for him. "Weren't we all hiding behind something? You behind your work, me behind my veil. Sometimes we need to create distance to discover what truly matters." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "And what matters is who a person is, not what they look like or what they own." "Exactly," Zara agreed, squeezing his hand. "Beauty and wealth are accidents of fortune. Character is the true measure of a person." As they stepped forward together to address the waiting crowd, they represented more than a successful business alliance or a society marriage. They embodied the possibility that when people look beyond appearances and expectations, they can discover authentic connection, the one thing that neither privilege nor position can purchase.